is finally upon us, and that means it's time for my June wrap up / May wrap up, because I wasn't here to do that, so yeah, let's do it all at the same time. Hi everybody, it's Lydia here. So this is my June wrap up, but I'm also going to include my May wrap up in it because I wasn't able to do that last month. There's quite a lot of books to talk about, so let's just get on with it, shall we? So first up, I finished rereading the entire Harry Potter series. So I technically actually started this back in April, but I finished it while I was away in May while I was travelling, so actually quite a lot of these I read on my Kindle instead. And this is the first time that I have reread the series since the entire series have been out. That is how long it's been. It was such an interesting experience rereading it as an adult. I grew up with this series. I was 7 when the first book came out, and I finished high school. I had just graduated from high school when Deathly Hallows came out, so I grew up as this series was released, and it was really interesting rereading it now that I am fully grown. I felt like I especially got a real sense of how the series changed, in particular in terms of the writing style. Like the first 2 books especially are so childish, and it really actually made me wonder why so many adults had ended up reading this. I guess a lot of them read it with their kids, but just people who didn't have kids, I find it really strange that a lot of people actually got into this book, because if I had picked up Philosopher's Stone, now that I'm 25 now, if I had picked that book up now, I don't know whether I would have been able to get into that series, because it is so simple, it's so aimed at children, and it's really interesting that pretty much Prisoner onwards, it just suddenly changes. It's almost like J.K. Rowling and her publishers had a meeting and say, okay, this series is getting like so much hype, not just from kids but from adults. In order to keep them all interested, we need to sort of make it a bit more adult in a way. So I understand why they did that, but equally I do feel like, that Philosopher's Stone came out when I was 7, so, and I think that's about the age that, it's a great age to read that book. But I would definitely not let my 7-year-old read any of the books post probably Prisoner, maybe Prisoner, but definitely not Goblet of Fire onwards. It gets so dark, and it just seems, just because the series starts off so clearly aimed at children, and it seems like you would get to a point, if you had a kid and you were letting them read this series, you would get to the point where it's like, should I be letting them read this book? Even though they've read the previous book, should I be allowing them to read this next book, because it's a whole lot darker? But it does present a conundrum, I think, if you're allowing your kids to read this, how far would you allow them to go if they're still quite young? So it's just an interesting thing that I thought about when I was reading it. So after finishing Harry Potter, I then moved on to Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I had been really looking forward to this. I'd saved it for when I was travelling, and I had mixed feelings about that. I'm not going to go into it now because I've already done a book talk on it. You can watch that by clicking here. Yeah, I had some I was disappointed by it, not gonna lie. So after that, I then read A Darker Shade of Magic by V. Schwab, which again I had mixed feelings about, but overall I really enjoyed. I've also done a really long spoiler-free video about that book, which you can watch here. It's like 15 minutes. I got really into it. I was like, I have so much to say about this book, so it's quite long. But yeah, I generally really enjoyed that book, and I'm looking forward to the next book in the series. Next, I read The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. This is the first book in that series, and I didn't like it. For those of you who don't know, it's about a series of parallel worlds in a way, or is it just a universe? I think it's just a universe, and then there's like this, there's basically the library, which is a massive world where there are books from all the universes, or all the other worlds, which they basically store, and librarians go out to these worlds and save copies of all the works of literature all over the universe so they can keep them in the library, so that there is always a copy of that book around in the world, in the universe basically. So I was expecting some kind of adventure caper thing, and it kind of just turned into Doctor Who meets Sherlock Holmes with magic. that's kind of what it turned into, and I didn't like it. It was really simple. Like, if this book hadn't been labelled, I think this book was labelled as adult, it wasn't even young adult, I think it was adult, but it read like middle grade. It was so simple. I really didn't enjoy the writing style at all. I think maybe if you really like murder mysteries, then you might like this book. Personally, I'm not a big fan of those kind of things, and the writing style did really turn me off. So I won't be reading the rest of that series. But I might do a video about it, I'm not sure. If you want to hear more about it, let me know in the comments below and I'll make a video, but not really sure. I did review it on my Goodreads though, so I will link that in the description below. After I had finished reading that, I decided to try Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rose. To be fair, I didn't give this book very much of a chance, and definitely in the future I do want to kind of just give it more of a chance, but I didn't really love it. I didn't fall in love with it. I only read a few chapters, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I do need to give it more of a chance, I think. I just found the lead character quite frustrating, and I just wasn't really enjoying reading it. I do say it was quite surprising. Lots of things happened that I just didn't see coming, even in those first few chapters, so that was nice, and it does make me want to read on, definitely, but I didn't get into it then, and I think I'll just leave it for a little bit and try again later in the future. But for now, that's a DNF. So I read those all when I was away, or tried to read those all when I was away, and when I came back, I decided to reread The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. This book came out last summer, and it was actually my favourite YA fantasy of last year. I really loved it. I loved the style of it, everything about it. It was just really refreshing and interesting, and I wanted to rereading it because the new one comes out in a couple of weeks. So I reread this one, and I think I enjoyed it even more second time round. For those of you who don't know, it's a book about a girl named Kelsey who is the heir to the throne of the Tearling, and she's basically been living in isolation her whole life because people want to kill her, and this is about how she is trying to regain her throne, basically. I really love it, and I really recommend this book. So I reread Queen of the Tearling, and the main reason why I reread Queen of the Tearling is because Transworld Publishers were very kind to send me an arc of the invasion of the Tearling, which I'm not going to go into now because I was sent this for the blog tour in a couple of weeks, so I'll be talking about this more then, but I just want to say I really, really liked it. It's so good. If you've read Queen and you're looking forward to this, you won't be disappointed. It's so good. So I finished that last week, and when I finished it, I was just in a slump. I didn't know what to read next. I wanted to go back into the world of the Tearling, and I missed it so much that I decided to just go for something that I bought last summer, and that was Dreams and Shadows by C. Robert Cargill. So I bought this in the middle of a book buying splurge last summer. I just bought loads of books, and this was one of the ones I picked up. I think it was recommended to me by Goodreads, which is why I picked it up. It's a fantasy, but it's set in the real world at the same time, so it's sort of a cross-genre thing. I started it. I read a couple of chapters, and I think, again, like Falling Kingdoms, I'm going to go back to this later in the future, but because I was still in a kind of post-Tearling phase and I was missing not being able to read that, I just couldn't get into it, but I will give it another chance in the future. So those are all the books I read this month. I actually just want to mention I love an exciting piece of post that I got last month when I was away, and I actually posted a picture of this on my Instagram because I was away, but I got my mum to take a picture of it so I could post a picture on Instagram for it. So basically I won a competition on Samantha Shannon's blog. She wrote The Bone Season and The Mime Order, by the way, and yeah, I love those series, as you know. Anyway, so I won a copy of On the Merits of Unnaturalness. For those of you who haven't read the series, for those of you who have read the series, you'll know what this is. For those of you who haven't read the series, it's basically a text which is mentioned throughout The Bone Season and The Mime Order, and Bloomsbury have produced it, and it's absolutely gorgeous, I'm not gonna lie. It's just really beautifully produced. It's on this lovely paper, and it's got colour and everything, and it looks gorgeous. I absolutely love it, and it's basically about the different types of clairvoyance which are featured in the series. I love it, and it's written from the point of view of one of the characters in the series as well. It's so good. I love it. It's beautiful, it's amazing, I love everything about it, it's so gorgeous. So thank you to Samantha for sending this to me, and yeah, I won it, so yay. That was great. So that is it for my May-June wrap up. Hopefully next month I will have a big book reading month. I really want to have a book reading splurge and just spend the whole month reading. And summer's coming, so hopefully I'll be able to sit out in the garden. It will be lovely. Although I did that when I was reading Invasion of the Tearling, and I got so engrossed with that book that I ended up with really bad sunburn on my legs, and I still haven't got rid of it. Anyway, that is it for me today. I will see you again soon, but until then, bye!